We've heard a lot about the Magnificent Seven over the past year or so, some of the top performing stocks on the market, a lot of them related to artificial intelligence and some of the big tech companies in the world. But not all investors are bought into all Magnificent Seven stocks, especially in 2024. We've seen a couple of them underperform. In particular, Tesla is one of the worst performers in the S&P 500. And billionaire David Tepper, who is investing almost $6 billion, is very invested in what I think of as the fabulous five of the Magnificent Seven stocks, and he is not into two of them at all. So I'm going to dig into exactly what he owns, how those positions changed at the end of 2023, and what to look for in 2024, because I think Tepper is one of those investors that I like to watch and see how he's looking at the market overall. Generally has a very concentrated portfolio and has a long history of success. So when he starts selling something that I own, it's something to pay attention to. My name's Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. So let's first look at Tepper's portfolio overall. This is Tepper's portfolio in Appaloosa Asset Management. $5.79 billion invested according to FinChat. That's the platform I'm using to pull this information. You can see that some of the biggest positions are some of the Magnificent Seven stocks. Meta, 11.3% of the portfolio. Microsoft, 11%. Amazon, 10.4%. NVIDIA, 6.8%. Those are the top four. And then number 7 is Alphabet with 5.6%. The two companies that you don't see listed here are Tesla and Apple. So I'm going to get to those in just a second, but the next thing I want to highlight is exactly what's changing in the portfolio, because this is where you can see what these investors are buying and what they're selling each quarter. And in the case of Tepper, it looks like he's taking some profits on some stocks that have done really well recently. Meta, that position was down 5.1% in the most recent quarter. NVIDIA dropped 22.9%. I want to dig into NVIDIA just a little bit. NVIDIA was a stock that Tepper was buying pretty heavily in mid-2023. So when we were in the midst of that artificial intelligence run-up, when growth was going absolutely crazy, Tepper was buying shares. But over the last quarter, he has been selling shares. And so this is one of the things that I like to keep an eye on as an investor is what are some of these bigger investors doing with some of these really hot names on the market? Are they just trading them? Have they been holding them for a very long time and now they're just realizing those gains? Tepper is somebody who really has a handle on what the trends are in the market and where the big opportunities are. And so when artificial intelligence pops up, you can see that NVIDIA, he was adding that late in 2022, but then really went all in spring of 2023, and now it's starting to pull back. So in the first quarter of 2024, do we start to see that pull back even more? I wouldn't be surprised to see if he's taking a lot of profits with NVIDIA. Meta Platforms is a bit of a different story. Meta is something that Tepper has owned since 2016. It's kind of gone in and out as far as the percentage of the portfolio, but has always been a pretty big holding. Over 5% for a fund manager like this is a pretty big holding, and that's now 11.3%. So added to that position in mid-2023, as you can see here, maybe one of the Magnificent Seven or artificial intelligence plays that a lot of investors were putting in place, and then started taking some profits late in the year. If we go back to the portfolio, the interesting buys, I think, recently are increased positions in Microsoft and Amazon. Not big increases, but small increases in those two stocks, maybe seeing some value there. And then Alibaba, which I think a lot of investors think is a phenomenal value. There's absolutely risks investing in Chinese companies, given the ownership structure there, given the things that we don't know about the future of the economy there. But Tepper is seeing enough opportunity to at least put a pretty sizable position in place. But he's selling things like Uber, Alphabet, AMD, Intel. These are stocks that did pretty well over the past year and were part of that artificial intelligence play. So is he starting to pull back on those? It certainly looks like it with a lot of these investments. And I think this is a theme that we've seen with a lot of the big hedge fund managers and billionaires, is they're starting to sell some of these stocks that are really big names in the Magnificent Seven in particular that did very well in 2023. They got in before a lot of these stocks ran up, bought in 2022, early in 2023, and now they're starting to take profits. So again, think about that. How should you be interpreting that as an individual investor? maybe it's time to start thinking about paring back on some of these stocks that have done really well and are starting to look like really high multiples. But the other thing that stuck out to me with Tepper's position is what he doesn't own. And he doesn't own Apple and Tesla. So I want to touch on those two both really quickly. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. Apple is the first company to look at, and late in 2023 when this report came out, Apple was trading for about 30 times earnings, a little over 30 times earnings. The stock has pulled back a little bit since then, but that's a pretty expensive multiple for a company that's not really growing. In fiscal 2023 and calendar 2023, revenue was down slightly at Apple, and it's hard to see how that's going to turn around significantly in 2024. A lot of those products that the company grew a lot on are aging, the iPhone, iPad, Mac. The new products like the Apple Vision Pro don't seem to be catching on in really significant numbers. And some of the growth from things like AirPods is likely leveling off, and even the services business, which has really fueled the company over the past 5 or 6 years, is starting to come under pressure as a lot of developers try to figure out how not to pay Apple as much as they have in the past. So this is a really interesting one that I'm sure if it were trading for 10, 15 times earnings, this Tepper would be all over it. But as somebody who has a bit of value and a bit of growth in the way that he invests, staying away from Apple. The other one that I think makes a ton of sense among the Magnificent Seven is Tesla. By late 2022, it was pretty clear that Tesla's margins were going to be on the decline in 2023. That was when they started discounting vehicles. And that happened throughout the year in 2023, culminating just last week with a really terrible delivery number in the first quarter of 2024. So given the valuation of the stock, which is about 10 times more expensive than traditional automakers on both a price to sales multiple and on a price to earnings multiple, Tepper has just stayed away from that stock. So I think that's an interesting thing to look at. He's not playing every one of these trends. He's playing the trends that are really just getting started. So artificial intelligence, something he was investing in early 2023, starting to sell that off at least a little bit, and has been staying away from electric vehicles, which were arguably really, really expensive as late as throughout the pandemic. And then we're starting to see those fundamentals get worse and worse throughout 2023. So two stocks that he's just stayed away from as a result of that, Apple and Tesla. But very overweight for the rest of the Magnificent Seven, or the Fabulous Five, as I've called them here. So I think that's pretty notable. Investors who are looking for exposure to some of these trends can keep an eye on what hedge fund managers are watching. They are buying and selling these reports, these 13F filings that they put out each quarter, come out 45 days after the quarter ends. So we'll get the next one from Tepper and other hedge fund managers, which I will cover here on Asymmetric Investing in about the middle of May. So check back here, subscribe to this channel to get updates on those. Let me know which one of these stocks you like the best in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.